we're going to go from Cass, who's a professor at QUT, to someone who's a final year student at QUT, the full spectrum. Please make Chaz feel really welcome.
So, my talk's about the Pwnagotchi, and this is a Pwnagotchi. The Pwnagotchi is a pretty cool little open source Wi-Fi hacking kit, and it's also kind of involved in like my beginnings into cybersecurity. So, first of all, I'm just going to tell you a story about how I found out about this thing and my history with it. So, I used to work in sales. I used to sell financial service stuff, and I quite enjoyed working in sales until the company that I was working for got hit with a ransomware attack. And at the time, I didn't know anything about IT or cybersecurity, so I didn't even ask what the details of that were, so I don't really know. But the IT guys were busy working on it while I was twiddling my thumbs in my office. And eventually, they got it sorted, but it took 2 to 3 weeks to fix. And obviously, 2 or 3 weeks of no sales at a sales company is a big problem. So the company rapidly downsized from about 200 people to, I think, 5 people at the end. So I walked out of that and I wanted to learn about cybersecurity. And the first thing I did is I went to South Bank TAFE, and I did a certificate 4 in cybersecurity, which I really enjoyed, actually. Yeah, it was really good. Tutors were really encouraging, and we didn't just do the stuff we were doing for TAFE, we also got a bunch of like home projects and extracurricular stuff that we were working on. And one of those things is I found the Pwnagotchi, and I decided I wanted to build one. So I put one together, and I brought it in, and all right, so just quickly, I'll get into the more technical details later, but what a Pwnagotchi is it's an open source Wi-Fi hacking tool, and it steals handshakes for WPA, which you can then use to like crack passwords for networks. But it's also, from its name, it's also like a cute little virtual pet, like a Tamagotchi, right? It can make friends, you can feed it, take it for walks, and you name it and everything. And so I brought this thing in, and I used it to crack the password to my friends' Wi-Fi hotspots on their phone, and I may or may not have attempted to do the same on the campus coffee place, which probably shouldn't have done, but I didn't know any better at the time. And I had a lot of fun with it, but I eventually kind of didn't know what to do with it, so I threw it in a drawer somewhere and forgot about it for a year. So a year later, I was going to QUT, and I was going to the White Hats meetups, because they're the cybersecurity club at QUT, and they're very cool. And I saw that there was a meetup coming for the Pwnagotchi. They were going to talk about the Pwnagotchi, show it off, and I thought, hey, this is perfect. I'm going to bring my Pwnagotchi in, get some nerd cred, show off that I know a thing or two about this. And so I go in, I find my Pwnagotchi in my drawer, turn it on, make sure it's all working, go in with it, and I'm walking around uni all day and showing all my friends, and then we go to the White Hat meetup. And I get to the White Hat meetup with Pony, because my Pwnagotchi is named Pony, because it's a Tamagotchi, right? Of course you have to name it. I get there, they start the talk, and the guy giving the talk, he's talking about how cool this thing is, but his one is unplugged and like disassembled on the desk. And at a certain point into the talk, he goes, okay, I'm gonna put mine together now, I'm gonna show you what it can do, but it's not gonna do all of the cool things it could do. It's not going to do all the cool things it could do, because I don't have permission to attempt to exploit the network of QUT. Obviously, you shouldn't be trying to do that. So I've got limiters in place on mine, and it'll still do some cool stuff, but it's not going to do everything. So I'm sitting there watching him and listening to this, and I'm starting to sweat a little bit, because I didn't know about limiters. I certainly don't have any limiters on mine. I've been walking around all day with it. So I put my hand up and I go, excuse me, does that mean that if I listen to this talk and I think it's super cool and I go home and get one of these things, don't bring it to uni? Don't bring it to the White Hat meetups? And he stops his talk and he goes, actually, that's a really good point. Just want to make it very clear to everyone that the Pwnagotchi is super cool. It's a really cool tool. I recommend you all get one, but don't bring it in if you haven't got these limiters on. That's really important. You could get in trouble. the club could get in trouble for teaching you these skills if you use them the wrong way. So I'm a bit concerned. I'm reaching down into my bag, trying to like subtly flick the switch and turn it off. But while I'm doing that, he turns his on. And then he holds it up and goes, "Hey, who's Pony?" And the little screen's got a message saying, "I've just made friends with another Pwnagotchi in the room." So completely derailed the talk. I think we spent the rest of the talk being lectured about how that's the wrong thing to do. But I managed to get out of there without being caught, so I'm kind of outing myself today. So that's what the Pwnagotchi is. As for me, as I said, my name's Chaz Mathieson. I'm working for a company called Cognitio Digital, but I'm a lot more fresh-faced than other people doing presentations today. As I said, I'm still in my final year at QUT, and this company that I'm working for, Cognitio, I've only started working there at the beginning of this year. And I actually got that position off an internship, and it was at that internship where I was having some beers with my boss, and we were talking about fun stories, and I told him that story, and he thought it was funny enough that I should email CrikeyCon about it, and so here I am. But let's talk about what a Pwnagotchi is in a bit more detail, right? So the Pwnagotchi, that's what one looks like. That's actually a photo of my one. And they're powered by an AI, a BetterCap AI, which I could do a whole talk on aside from this. They're pretty cool, Google it. But basically what this thing is it logs WPA handshakes by using passive sniffing and deauthentication exploits powered by this AI, and it's also a cute virtual pet. Now, I know you're definitely all thinking, wow, this Pwnagotchi thing sounds super cool, so how do we get one? Well, there's a shopping list. You don't have to go to Core Electronics, but it's where I bought my parts, and they're pretty good. So we're going to need a Raspberry Pi 0WH. It doesn't have to be a H, but the H means that you don't have to solder the header on yourself. 2.3-inch e-ink two-color hat display from Waveshare. Doesn't have to be from Waveshare, but the Pwnagotchi was built for it, so it makes it easier. Then you need a battery bank, because if you have to plug this thing into a wall, it kind of defeats the point of it being like a Tamagotchi you can put on your keyring, right? And you need a micro SD card. A better micro SD card means a better Pwnagotchi, but a little 8 gig junk one will work just fine. Now, I'm going to quickly Alt-Tab and show you the Pwnagotchi website, because we're going to need to get the brain for our Pwnagotchi. It's also just quickly worth mentioning that there's a Pwnagotchi website called Pwnagotchi.ai, and there's also a Pwnagotchi.org. This is an open source project. Pwnagotchi AI is the homepage of the official Pwnagotchi. It hasn't been updated since 2021, but the Pwnagotchi.org is a community page. It's got all sorts of extra bells and whistles, more up-to-date images, all sorts of stuff. But we're just going to be looking at the official one today. You can go to installation, and there's a link down here, which brings us to EvilSocket's GitHub page, where you can download the brain of your Pwnagotchi. It's in a zip file. I have already done that. Then you just go get your Raspberry Pi official imager, use a custom one, boom, my SD card's plugged in, and I can write a Pwnagotchi brain. Now, while that's in the oven, there are some Pwnagotchis I have prepared earlier on an SD cards. In fact, if I go back to my talk, I want to make a special thanks to a company called Vectra AI for sponsoring me to give away a couple of Pwnagotchis. They're in parts, and I'm sure somebody has them. There they are. Do you want to give them to 1, 2, 3, 4 people in the front row that decided to sit in the front? So those little bags contain all the parts you need for a Pwnagotchi. And I'm going to show you how to put one together. So if I just quickly pull mine apart, you'll see that for the people with them in bags, there we go. Can we get the camera in on this? We have a little Pwnagotchi. Woohoo! That's pretty cool. So this is my Raspberry Pi 0W board. This is my WaveShare e-ink display. Now, I'm sure this is very complicated, but there's pins, there's pin holes on this. We're going to put the display on the Pwnagotchi, right? Oop. Not part of the plan. Ooh. It's hard to do this while I'm trying to make it good for the audience, but pins line up with the pin holes. Boom, boom. Look at that, we plug it in, we're all sorted. Next step, we take that SD card that we just flashed, and we plug it into a little SD card slot there. Easy peasy. And then there are two little micro USB slots. Yes, micro USB, I don't know what they were thinking. And we're going to plug our battery pack, sorry camera guy, into that one right there, the one closer to the edge. The other one is for data, this one's for power. Plug mine in, turn it on, and it'll take a moment to boot up, but that is one Pwnagotchi ready to go. It took, what, like 5 minutes? Thank you. So yeah, we got a Pwnagotchi now, right? You guys all know how to make one. You can put one together at home if you want, and there are 4 people in the front who are fiddling with theirs, and they'll figure theirs out. Distracted for the rest of the talk. Now, the people who have these, they can get theirs booted up, and they'll be able to see this a bit closer up. But this is what Pwnagotchi's UI looks like once it's set up, what you see on the screen. So, it's got the big happy face that tells you how it's feeling. It's super excited whenever it's exploiting networks. It's super upset when you leave it in a drawer for a year and forget about it. It's got its name. This one's hawking. The status message will tell you what it's currently doing. And there's some information at the top about uptime and stuff, but what I want to draw your attention to is at the bottom, that's the exciting stuff, is the number of handshakes it's captured since last boot, total number of unique networks it's pwned across its lifetime, and the name of the most recent network it's hit. Also just there is, if you make a friend, it tells you you've made a friend. That's what got me caught out at QT. So now that we have Pwnagotchi up and running on stage, and also just quick mention, I do have the limiters on this time, and each of you have the limiters built into yours. You can go home and change that if you feel the need to. Now that we have one of these and we understand how they're built, let's talk about what they actually do and what the more interesting technical stuff. So first thing I have to explain is a 4-way handshake. This is how Wi-Fi, when your device connects to Wi-Fi, this is how it makes sure everything's kind of lined up and creates a really strong connection that between the device and the network that we're not going to be able to break, or at least the Pwnagotchi is not going to be able to break. So instead, the Pwnagotchi needs to get involved during this handshake. So this is my little representation of passive sniffing. So basically what the Pwnagotchi does is you walk around with it all day, and while devices and networks are trying to contact each other and doing these handshakes, it's sending signals out all over the place that anyone can pick up, and the Pwnagotchi's ready and waiting at all times. Whenever it sees a handshake, it makes a copy of it and puts it on the SD card. And there's so many devices out there constantly doing this that even without its more advanced features, it's going to be picking up handshakes. But you kind of have to be in the right place at the right time. And who wants to rely on luck, right? Well, that's where the deauth comes in, the deauthentication exploit. So basically, the deauthentication exploit is the Pwnagotchi can tell that there's networks out there, it sees handshakes going past, but instead of just capturing what it can when it sees it, it finds a device that's connected to a network already and sends what is similar to a very, very small denial of service to that device, breaking it off from the network. And when it does this, it's just a tiny little blip off the network very quickly. And when it does this, the device goes, hey, I was watching YouTube or something. Where's my packets? I want the internet back. So it attempts to automatically reconnect. And when it's automatically reconnecting, it has to perform that handshake again. And this time, the Pwnagotchi is lying in wait. And it can capture the whole handshake, make a perfect copy. So what do we do with the handshake? That's where Hashcat gets involved. Hashcat is a password recovery tool. There are other password recovery tools. A really popular one is John the Ripper, but Hashcat is what Pwnagotchi was developed for. So Hashcat can brute force a password. It can take the hashed passwords that are in the handshakes. There's also a lot of other information in those handshakes, but what we're interested in right now is the passwords for the networks. It can take those hashed passwords and attempt to break them and find the plain text. It can do a brute force, but a much more sophisticated attempt would be to use a dictionary. So a dictionary is essentially just a giant list of passwords that we can attempt. One such dictionary that is good for beginners, the people with Pwnagotchis in the front row might want to use this one day, is RockU. It's a pretty popular one, pretty well known. RockU was actually a plugin for MySpace. You remember MySpace? It's a bit of a throwback speech, this one, MySpace, Tamagotchis. So it was a plugin for MySpace, and I think it let you listen to rock music or something. I don't think anybody really remembers it or cares that much, but it is very well remembered for having a very significant data breach in 2009. It leaked, or attackers leaked, 32 million plain text passwords for users of RockU, and that's a pretty significant issue, but more interestingly is that researchers then took those passwords, that password list, made a dictionary out of it, and they attempted it on other websites, on other accounts that had been leaked through various other issues. And they found that there was actually a really significant hit rate of passwords being shared between the RockU list and everywhere else on the internet. So RockU's fairly effective at finding passwords just in the wild. That being said, though, it's still pretty basic as far as password recovery goes. That's where we want to introduce what's called a rule. In this case, I would recommend the one rule to rule them all. So a rule, just quickly, basically, when we tell Hashcat, hey, we want you to go try and break this password, Hashcat is going to take that list of passwords from RockU, and it's just going to try all of them. But with a rule, we can say, hey, while you're trying them, if it doesn't work, let's say the first password is password. If password doesn't work, try password with a capital P. And if capital P password doesn't work, try replacing every A with an @ symbol, or put a number at the end. So we kind of exponentially increase the strength of our password breaking doing this, but we also, we also increase the computing time necessary to achieve this, but it's worth it if we're taking it seriously. One rule, though, is pretty interesting. There's a company called Not So Secure, or a website called Not So Secure. They did some research into rules, I believe in 2017, and they pulled up the top 10 most popular rule lists on the internet, ran them through a bunch of tests, found which ones are most efficient, which ones are most effective, so on. And then they took the top handful from that, I think the top 4, combined them into one super strong rule, and that is the one rule to rule them all. It was able to effectively crack 68% of passwords that they had tested it on. They actually tested it on Minecraft accounts that were leaked, but 68% is a pretty significant hit rate. So that's kind of where the Pwnagotchi ends, but I can actually just quickly show you, because I want you to all be able to actually use one of these devices, how we go about using Hashcat, using OneRule, using RockU. So I've got a file in here called handshakes that contains my home handshakes from my home network, ethically sourced. And it also contains the OneRule to rule them all and RockU.txt, which you can download by just Googling them. First thing you get when you Google RockU is a link that just downloads RockU, and first thing you get when you Google OneRule to rule them all is the GitHub that has it on it. So once we've got them, you open this up in terminal. You need to actually convert the files, the handshake files that you get from a Pwnagotchi. The Pwnagotchi stores them in pcaps, which is no longer supported by Hashcat. I think it was when this thing was originally created. There's a code line here that I'm going to run. If you do this, nobody's going to remember the code line. Just Google it. But basically, what this is, this one, is a tool from Hashcat that turns these handshake files into one file called candidates that has a bunch of information up there. Then I can open it again in terminal. I can say, hey, take that file called candidates, use OneRule on them, and use RockU on it. I can run that and hit S for status, and it'll show us all this information about it making an attempt. It's also going to get upset because it wants me to give it more handshakes. Also, you'll notice that up here we have time estimated. I am on my laptop. It is going to take 5 years to run through all of this. So we might be here a while, but we can narrow that down, use a bit more of a powerful computer, get that in a more manageable state. So, I'm going to close all that, because we're not going to wait for 5 years for me to finish this talk. And, I've disconnected, so it doesn't want to full screen my slides anymore. That's lovely. Well, what are the takeaways? I've talked about how cool the Pwnagotchi is, but also at the start, my story was about, making sure you actually do the right thing with these. So don't attempt to exploit a network that you don't have permission to exploit or you don't own. Do make sure you could actually configure your Pwnagotchi, put those limiters in place if you're going to take it out into the wild. And don't use this device like I did, like a fool, and take it into uni without knowing what you're doing with it. In fact, on that note, if there are any QT white hats in the room, yeah, it was me. I was the guy. I'm really sorry about that, and I hope I can still be in the club when I go back to uni. So that's my talk. I hope you liked it. Thank you.
So thanks, Chaz. Thanks for outing yourself. We appreciate it. There are some white hats in the room, or at least some ex-white hats, but I'm sure they'll be nice about it. Everyone, please give Chaz another round of applause.
Thank you.